Leading up to this anxiously awaited launch of the Night token, we were all sort of harboring this big question. What was this thing going to be worth on day one? Now we're through day one, and it's time to talk about whether or not all of our hopes were dashed or whether nightfall was really more like the dawn of a new day. If you absolutely will not accept that thumbnail until the sky is full of Lambos to go along with all the moons, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies DRep address and the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Let's see what we've got here. Neo Chad was first. Fly over me. Well, second's better than last. Let's go. Yeah. Midnight over 4 cents. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about it. Don't forget a thumbs up. Thanks for that. Fly over me. Fly over me says, I have a weird thought. When we start to receive dust, will the tax man think it has monetary value? You know, I am no accountant and I'm not a tax advisor of any type, so you should talk to your accountant. But I will say that the IRS certainly seems to think if you receive anything that it is income. Anything in crypto, it is income. That seems to be the case based on my casual knowledge of crypto and having paid taxes on it all these years. So you do whatever your accountant tells you to do. I pay taxes. Excuse me. I pay taxes on everything I get in crypto. Eric Williams, let's go. Pucky Hawk says the taxmen will find you. Oh, yes, they will. Yep. Hilldog is here. Hilldog says, I went to the midnight site, says the thaw starts tomorrow. Can someone explain the whole date thing? You get assigned a date when you can redeem them. Where do you find that date? Sorry for retarded. Okay. Go to the Glacier Drop redeem site. Just, Google Glacier Drop, midnight, any of those Cardano, any of those combination of words, and you'll find the Glacier Drop platform. There's a redeem button on that page, a tab or a button. You'll navigate your way there. And then you can either just connect your wallet that you used, or if you used like multiple addresses, you can just copy and paste the addresses into a little form and it'll give you your first date. So you get assigned a date in between sort of day 1 and day 90. That's starting tomorrow as I speak, but today for most people as they listen. And that'll be your first tranche of 25% of your allocation. And then the subsequent 25% tranches will happen every 90 days after that. So whatever you're going to personally, your address is going to get its own random date in between 0 and 90. If you have multiple addresses, they'll each get their own randomly assigned date between 1 and 90. And then no matter what date you get between 1 and 90, every 90 days after that, you'll get the subsequent tranche. So hopefully that was descriptive and not just confusing. So many moons. Yes. I think there wasn't a good way to represent night. There wasn't a good way to represent night. I need to be all kinds of puns showing medieval nights and that kind of thing. So I thought this was as good a way as any to represent a large number of nights, billions of nights. But we're going to talk about actual billions of nights. Hey, friends, what an awesome day. It was an awesome day today. Otis Frichov says, let's go. Yeah, I think today was a really awesome day. And I think people might be underselling how awesome today was. We're going to talk about that. Sir James says, I hope the bankless bitches dump because I just learned I can set trigger orders on Dex Hunter and now I have a little army of Ada ready to capture the night. Laugh out loud. Let's fucking go. I will be sleeping well tonight. Yeah, I think today actually went exceptionally well. Like I said, I think people are underselling how well it went today. Jay Marie is here. The spooky tech is here. Hola, Rulo. Thank you for joining. Hilldog says, relief rally incoming. Just be ready for the institutional dump. Dr. Doak says, hello all. Thanks, AOS, for helping me through the tail end of my fiat mining shifts each day. My pleasure. Thank you for joining. Afro in the Wind says, figured out my night situation. Thanks, AOS. Oh, glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. That's great. Brian Presnell says, yo. Thanks for joining. Jerry H says, good morning. Thank you for everything. Oh, that's very nice of you to say, for saying that. I appreciate that. Thanks. Coop to Scoop KC says, how do I buy Night? You can go to a lot of different centralized exchanges. For a lot of people, the easiest is probably Kraken, but there's a whole handful of them. If you just search on Twitter, you'll find a bunch of posts where people have posted a bunch of different exchanges. I think Kraken is probably like the most well-known. In certain parts of the world, at least, it's the most well-known that people might recognize, but Kraken's a pretty easy one. But Cardano is also on Dex. I mean, Night is also on Cardano Dexes now. So there's that too. We'll talk about that a little bit. In the US, yeah, I'd say Kraken. Kraken's probably the easiest, most well-known place. Jay Coco, hey, yo, thank you for joining. Jose, hello. Thanks for joining, as always. Otis Fricio says, do you have to claim every 90 days or at the end of the full thawing? This question came up last night. Like, how long can you claim? I recollect it being a pretty long period during which you can claim, which you kind of predict based on all the drama people tried to create about what happened to the unclaimed vouchers in the original Cardano ICO that happened in Asia clear back in the day. So one of the things that reflected, I think, well on the founding entities is that they gave the voucher holders a long time to claim their vouchers. And my recollection is that with Midnight, it is the same. You have quite a while to claim, but don't take my word for that. Don't take my word for it. Definitely check the documentation. Check the white paper. I believe that's in the white paper. I think you'll find that information in the white paper. Okay. So here's an interesting question. Is this ADA at 4 cents all over again? Is this ADA at 4 cents all over again? The magical part is that no one really knows. That's the magical part. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. So just like it was the same thing with Cardano back in the day. Like I've said this a million times, but I had a little like side business, a little hobby business back in the day, back in, that whole 2017, 2018 period when Cardano launched and when ADA was at less than 3 cents even. And it was a brick and mortar business, and customers would come in all the time, and a lot of them were into crypto. It wasn't a crypto business, but a lot of them were into crypto, and some of them would pay me in crypto, which I paid my taxes on. Damn it, I paid those taxes. But the important thing is, even when ADA was like 2.8 cents or whatever I was buying it at the low in like Q1 2018 or Q2, whenever that was in 2018, people would talk shit to me about Cardano, even back then. And it's not that they were trying to talk shit about Cardano. It's just that people in crypto will talk shit about any bag they don't hold, any ecosystem they're not a part of. They're going to talk shit about it. And they're not really trying to talk shit to you about it. They're trying to justify to themselves why they haven't bought any, why their choices are superior, right? And this can happen. This can happen in a million different things, right? With a million different things. It's like, your neighbor who has this brand of car is going to talk shit to you about your car, not because he wants to make you feel bad about your car, but because he wants to feel better about his car. It's this kind of thing exactly, right? It's like Yamaha versus Honda, right? It's Ford versus Chevy. It's Benz versus Beamer. All these things, right? It's like they're not really trying to talk shit to you about it. They're just trying to fortify their own past decision making in their mind. So even when ADA was less than 3 cents, people would come in and talk shit to me about, they'd be like, oh, what are you buying? What are you into? What kind of crypto are you into? And I would talk about Cardano, and they would immediately talk shit to me about Cardano when Cardano was 2.8 cents. And of course, subsequently, we 100x'd during that cycle, and it was over $3. And I didn't hear from any of those motherfuckers when it was over $3. So is Night ADA at 4 cents all over again? Who the hell knows? Nobody knows. I wish I knew, but nobody knows. It's always 8 o'clock somewhere, but not always with AOS. Cheers. Thank you. AI enthusiast, thank you for joining. Let's go. Thank you for joining. I got my Night at 3:25 a.m. and got way more than expected. Held it and buying a ton more. Good for you. Good for you. X last Gambit. I hope it works out. think I think I had a little. It's weird. I think I had a little precognition on you posting tonight. Your username. There's a little precognition going on about an hour ago for some reason. Getting my night on Boxing Day. Oh, all right. Okay, fair enough. Patrick, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, Patrick. 85 days for my main amount was going to hold anyways. Yeah, I think I've already said I was at like 82 when I checked the other day. I'm sure now it's like, 80 or 79 or something, but yeah, I had a long one too. Charles said he was trolling everyone with the Mike Alfred call about liquidity entering the market in 70-ish days. Mentions it at 29.22 of Charles Hoskinson predicts 250K BTC super cycle. Big pay vid. Oh, I haven't seen that. Okay, thank you for saying that. That's a if that was him and Mike Alfred, like whether they premeditated it or not, but if that was them just trolling everybody, I don't know if that's a very it's funny, but I don't know if that's a very responsible troll. Like if you just make some shit up, I'm not so much Charles, because it's kind of, if Charles did that, it's actually kind of funny because he didn't originate it. But if Mike Alfred is just, or anybody in crypto comes along and says, "Hey, I've heard from a very good source that trillions of dollars of liquidity are going to flow into the system in the next 75 days," and then they never correct that, it's like at a certain point, it moves from trolling to just manipulating markets, and of course, if you're in crypto, you'd argue, "Oh, that's good," but at the same time, I mean, I don't know, maybe both of them have already corrected this and said it was just a troll. Like, I think if you said something like that and then 2 hours later you're like, "Oh, just kidding." But if you do it like days and days later, if both of you do it, or you know what I mean? It's like at a certain point, I don't know how much of a troll that is and how much it's something else. That's all I'll say about that. But I'd be curious. I don't, obviously I don't follow Mike Alfred. I believe he was the original poster. I don't follow him or read his posts, so maybe he's corrected that was a troll in the meantime, but I haven't seen it. Montana Skies 15 says, "Wish we could be back above $3 now." Me too. We're going to talk about that in the context of Night a little bit. Brian Presnell says, "I remember buying a lot of ADA at 2 cents a number of years ago. Night will do it too if it brings the same value, and then the fact that it's aiming to be cross-chain should be very valuable in the future." Yeah, the cross-chain interoperability of Night is something we've never had before. I think the very interesting things about Night to me are TypeScript, that Compact kind of changed its name. What is it called now? Minokawa or something like that. They kind of changed the name of TypeScript, or of Compact, but it's kind of just a TypeScript DSL anyways. But the fact that Compact is TypeScript is great compared to functional programming, just a much wider world of devs who work in the non-functional world versus the functional Haskell type world. I know Aiken is a great improvement, but still TypeScript is, just typed JavaScript. It's like everybody, it's a huge improvement. But the interoperability thing is huge. I think the ZK piece is bigger. It's going to be bigger. People are going to appreciate that more in the future than even they do now. But I think the ZK piece is huge. The interoperability piece is also huge. The interoperability piece, like I understand how the ZK piece, I already understand the value of the ZK piece technologically. With the interoperability piece, there's this social execution thing. There's a social layer to the execution. The ZK piece, it's sort of just like technological execution. With the interoperability piece, there's a big social execution layer to that. There's a big social layer to that execution. That I want to see how that goes. Anyone hear of Confidential Privacy Coin that comes out tomorrow? I saw Altcoin Daily talking about it. They sponsored their video yesterday. Is it midnight? Is it the night token, or is it something else? Is it a? Are you saying it's a confidential privacy coin, but you can't remember the name of it? Is that what it is? Pucky Hawk says in at 4.5 cents. Not too bad. Marco says, hello, AOS family. I got 9 day. Ooh, nice. 9 days on a small amount and 56 days on a main amount in night. I trust. Yeah, you did better basically on both of yours than I did. I guess. No, I guess. I mean, I guess I have like a second week of January one, but my big one is definitely in the 80s. So you did much better than me on your main bag. Good for you. Congratulations. With crypto-friendly administration, why are some exchanges still not in many states? So there are, just like our securities laws, like you're probably aware, we've got the SEC, which is our federal securities regulator, and then every state has a state securities regulator, and it's the same on all the like money transmitter stuff. So the exchanges can be afraid of like money transmitter laws, and then you've got states like New York, right? New York just has, because they have so much finance going on there. There's so much going on in their finance sector. They have really robust finance state regulation. So New York is always going to be tricky for crypto, and some other states too. But it's basically because you have state and federal regulation. Some states are easy, some states are super hard. So like Wyoming being on the super reasonable end of that, and New York being on the super hard end of that. What's the significance of Iagon and Fireblocks integration? I don't know. I've seen it. Fireblocks, the desire for Fireblocks integration has come up over the years. I honestly haven't consumed all the news on that, so I don't dare comment. Last Gamut says, I was expecting more volatility with night, but this thawing might actually be the future of drops. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the thaw, and we're going to talk about that sort of quantitatively in just a second. Mission Zambia, morning. Hilldog says, how hard are competing chains working to make their own midnight? It seems like they all are. It seems like Charles mentioned in his video today, I think he said they've been working on midnight for 5 years, and it seems like a lot of other chains sort of saw Zcash picking up steam this year, and they sort of just like started like this year or last year. So it seems like they're pretty far behind. At Cardano, thank you for joining. Oh, Mission Zambia. Congratulations. Mission Zambia is a member of the Midnight Ambassador Program. Good for you. Good job. It's Nidmite, probably. There you go. Who was it? James Syracuse. Yeah, James Syracuse asked about the confidential privacy coin. It's probably, I agree. It's probably called Nidmite. I was confused. It's called confidential. I thought they were going to say midnight because they were talking about privacy. And then they say that BS cross chain token, it goes to base, BTC, Solana. There's okay. What is Free Show? It says, looks like I will have to learn more about DEXs. Yeah, definitely do not YOLO into a super heavy trade for night on a DEX if you don't understand how slippage works. We're going to talk about some victims of that in just a second, but tread carefully if you don't understand how slippage works. And also, if you go to be an LP, if you go to be a liquidity provider, understand impermanent loss as well. Wyoming wins. Colorado is a close second. Super crypto friendly. Okay, good to know. Let's go, Tucker Triggs. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Okay, let's jump in, guys. So I said we're going to talk quantitatively a little bit about the glacier drop and these billions of night. Let's jump right into that. So don't react too negatively to my posting of this. Don't jump to any conclusions, because people are bringing this up right now in a kind of an accusatory, pejorative way a little bit, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the opposite. So look at when Charles posted this, July 4th. That was back before we realized how screwed up 2025 was going to be. We didn't realize how fucked we were in 2025 back in July. There were some strong inklings. You had that strong gnawing feeling in your stomach that maybe this year was going to be all fucked up, but we didn't really know yet. There was still hope, right, that it wouldn't be super messed up this year. So I actually think that Charles' prediction was pretty dead on, if 2025 hadn't been so screwed up, right? Like even years ago, people were predicting Cardano new all-time highs in December 2025. Years ago, they're predicting this. Why? Because of the liquidity cycle and the way it's played out in the past. Basically, we've talked about this a million times on the channel, but the prediction was Cardano all-time highs, Q4-ish, maybe late Q3, but really Q4-ish. And if that had played out, if that had been true, right, we would have had to if you think about the prices we've been at very recently, we almost would have had to 10x to get to new all-time highs from where we are now. That's how bad things are. We're like 10% of where, people's sort of bearish case years ago would have been that, we would have surpassed our old all-time highs, and maybe only gone a little bit past that. That's only like 10x from where we are right now. So Charles predicted 10 billion, greater than 10 billion on July 4th of 2025. If we look at the market cap right now, as it loads very slowly because CMC has built so much bullshit onto their site that it takes forever to load. Look at this. We're at a billion. I'm going to offer that Charles was basically dead on if we'd had the kind of 2025 everybody was expecting. We've got this horrible 2025 where our Cardano prices are like 10% of where they should be. And no surprise, the midnight fully diluted market cap is over a billion, right? So we're kind of right where Charles thought we should have been. He, like everybody else, just didn't know that 2025 was going to be super screwed up. But actually, I was really afraid, even a couple days ago, I was really afraid we would not reach these kinds of numbers, right? If you want to see their definition of fully diluted value, it's right there. This takes into account all of the coins, even the ones that aren't in the currently circulating market cap. This one, market cap, is just current price times circulating supply. Circulating supply right now, according to CMC, is just 16.6. The total supply is 24 billion, max supply 24 billion. So fully diluted market cap over a billion. Charles is pretty dead on. I honestly, a couple days ago, I was really afraid we wouldn't get to here. I was afraid that what would happen would be yesterday, we would drop right through this range and we'd be at less than a penny. I'm not saying I was predicting that. I'm saying I was afraid that could happen because it's happened in so many airdrops in the past. So that didn't happen yesterday, which is great. But on the first day after a coin goes live, what do you have? You have what a lot of us in the comments here are saying, that there was buy pressure. It was the first chance. This was the first 24-hour period. We're not even through it yet. This was the first 24-hour period people had to buy this coin, right? You couldn't DCA into this coin. You couldn't make your dollar cost average into this coin up until now because there was none of it for sale. You couldn't buy it because there was none in open circulation. But this period, this 24-hour period, was the first time you could do it. So there's going to be a lot of first-day buyers. That was today. And tomorrow, there's going to be second-day buyers. And on the third, there's going to be third-day buyers. But you got to ask yourself, does that fall off? How fast does it fall off? What does it do? Are we going to have as many people buying on day 27 as on day 1? Depends on what happens. But here's what we do know. Tomorrow is the first day that glacier drop allocations drop. It's the first day of the thaw. So what happens during the first day of the thaw? Well, we know there's 3.547 billion glacier drop claims. People claimed that much night from their current holdings in ADA and Bitcoin and Ethereum and Avalanche and all these ecosystems. There was an additional 1 billion in scavenger mine claims. That means there's like 4.547 billion. We're just using rough back of the envelope numbers here. There's roughly that many claims out there. They all got this number like we got between 1 and 90. So 1/90th of that amount is going to thaw every day, but not really 1/90th. It's 25% of 1/90th. So if my numbers are correct, and they could be very wrong, so somebody correct me if they've done the math better than I have, but it sounds like we're going to have about 12.63 million night thawing every day. If we have 3.547 glacier drop claims, 1 billion scavenger mine claims, there are 90 day slots, and this first tranche is only 25%. I think that's 12.63 million night thawing every single day. So today, as most people watch it, 12.63 million are going to thaw. Then the next day, 12.63 million are going to thaw. Then the next day, 12.63 million are going to thaw. So what has the volume been today? Well, just on Kraken, according to this, just on Kraken for this 24-hour period, which is not over yet. This isn't a full 24-hour period because we haven't been live for 24 hours. We've had volume of 117 million night, right? Granted, we've got this phenomenon where that could be first day volume. You know, what does day 27 look like in terms of buy demand versus today? But obviously, 117 million in volume can easily swallow up 12.63 in issuance. The question is, what does that look like on day 27? What does that look like on day 61, right? What about after everybody's gone through their first tranche? What about the second tranche, right? How many people are going to hang on to their allocations in Bitcoin, in Ethereum versus Cardano? How about on the second tranche? Maybe people will sell their first tranche and they'll be more likely to hang on to the second tranche, or maybe not. Maybe they're pissed by the time they get the second tranche and they sell it even faster. We don't know. This is all the behavioral component that nobody really knows the answer to. Like, I'm sure Charles and those guys, they're very prepared always, seemingly, for everything. So, I mean, I would imagine they had like economists modeling this out, like how much sell pressure are we going to see, maybe like, behavioral researchers, how many people are likely to immediately sell out of each of these ecosystems, how many people will forget they were even allocated the coins, all these different factors. They probably figured out what they thought the flows were going to be. But even if they had like behavioral researchers and economists modeling everything out, nobody really knows. Nobody really knows what this is going to look like on day 27, day 61, day 340. We don't really know what it's going to look like. We know what the volumes were today, though, and they're pretty good. I would actually say this was a huge success, given that we didn't fall right through. We, when I was sort of falling asleep last night, we were dropping through, dropping into the threes. We're dropping under 4 cents. When I woke up, we were still in the threes. Now we're in the high 4-cent range. This is pretty good. This is much better than I feared. So I think things are going A-okay in the world of the night launch. So let's see what we got here. Okay. At Cardano says, I only do limit orders on DEXs these days. I think that's a good rule always. Like, unless you're looking at the order book of an order book DEX and you see there's like some huge amount of liquidity and you're not, you're not making any kind of giant trade, if it's just like some small trade you don't really care about, then that makes sense for a market order. But otherwise, it's like there are sometimes when you have time constraints in an order book DEX and you don't want to wait for somebody to execute against your limit order. But I mean, largely, if you're being careful and calculating, like I feel like for myself, I should be able to do limit orders all the time on all types of DEXs, all types of exchanges. I know I was just saying DEXs. I meant exchanges on all types of exchanges, but especially on DEXs that famously suffer from slippage, as we're about to see, I would definitely use limit orders and not market orders. Mark Going, good evening. Let's go. Love the price. Goal is to get more night than ADA and stake night soon. Very nice. Very nice. ADA Eclipse says, how do I draw Fibonacci's on a midnight chart with only 12 hours of price history? I know it's kind of amazing. We'll start seeing Fibonacci's very soon on the night chart. Probably there's some dude out there recording a video right now with a bunch of Fibonacci's on the night chart. That should tell you the value of this form of astrology for men. Plucky Hawk says, I don't usually watch charts, but I am this time because it is new and night is flying. This order book is fully on. Yep, it's interesting to watch the demand and supply rise and fall for sure. 721 minute candles. Is that enough Fibonacci's for you? There you go. I'm ready for a real world use case for midnight. Me too. Me too. Actually, I think the ZK technology part is going to provide for a lot of different use cases. More on that later. Sub-Zero day 90. Did you really get a day 90? I know. I think you also had a very late pull like I did. But did you actually have a day 90? I thought you were like in the 80s, along with me. Omar, greetings. Thanks for joining. Brian says, hopefully no one purchased the boobs today on Binance. Damn scam coins. Check your policy IDs before you buy on DEXs. Do that. Definitely do that. Not a wild thing. He says, if thaw dates are random, then the amounts that will thaw per day will vary a lot, but also not everyone will claim immediately. I assume you. Yeah, this is a very good point. So this is like these numbers are if every single wallet had the exact same amount in them. That is not true. We're just we're making this like fictional assumption that the 4.57 billion are like divided up perfectly evenly between all the wallets. That is absolutely not true. Some wallets might have millions of ADA in them. Some wallets might have 101 ADA in them. So these numbers are going to vary wildly, but I just wanted to give I wanted to frame the discussion so we had some kind of general number to talk about. Like we know the number of claims there are, and we know the number of days, and we know the percentage of each tranche. But the numbers are just very like an average for discussion purposes, basically. Very good point. I should have pointed that out. Thank you. Frazek, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. With all this talk, I think I will stick with Kraken. Yeah, I would just go to Kraken, and wherever you go, stick with limit orders for sure. Much easier. Now we're going to talk about some scary things that happened over the last 24 hours too, specific cases. Morning, Mallow. Morning. Sub-Zero says, I'll be holding it down. Yeah, me too. I'll just be watching you all get your allocations, get your big allocations until I finally get mine in late February. That'll be fun. Fun for me and Sub-Zero. Anyone have problems with some wallets not showing the night mined, but my receipts show I mined some there? Okay, yeah. Anybody who's experiencing a similar thing as Daniil, let him know. Are you saying like when you punch your particular address into the redemption portal or one of the other tools that are out there? I think Patty and Paul already have their own tool for this. But are you saying when you punch the address in there, it's not showing? Or are you saying in your actual wallet, it's not showing the night you mined? Because I think you're only going to see it if you go to one of those portals and punch the address in there or connect your wallet. Maybe that's what you mean. Maybe you mean you're connecting your wallet to one of the portals. But okay, let's talk. Let's do a little governance housekeeping here. So let's do a little governance housekeeping. So let's see. Daniil says yes. It says 0. So are you saying I think Daniil is saying when he goes into the portal, it's showing 0. So is that because do you have the right address, or was it a different account? Was it a different account in the same wallet? So where is night at in dollars? I haven't been able to do anything yet. We'll try to do the claim tomorrow. Those numbers we just looked at were in dollars. That was the Kraken night USD order book. So those amounts were in dollars. They were actually in cents because we're at like, we were at 4.8 cents. 4.8 cents. Okay, let's do a little. Good to see you, Liam. Thanks for joining. Okay, let's do a little governance housekeeping. So there were some votes. So I did vote for the Cardano Curia group, mainly because they were the only ones I knew, right? The other candidates, candidates for the community, for the Constitutional Committee, they seemed, perfectly reasonable. I think someone could have very reasonably voted for any of those other parties. But when I looked at the list of names in Cardano Curia, I either had talked to some of the, at least one of the people in that group, that was Blockjock, who's someone I think a lot of people in Cardano know who that is. He's been involved with USDM and been around the community for a while. I've talked to him before, not in person, of course, but online. I kind of know he's familiar to me. I kind of someone who I've had communication with. I know who some of the other people are: Mladen, Sheldon Hunt. Like, these are people I recognized. I didn't really recognize many other people sort of in the vote. The first vote was the Ecclesia vote. I voted for them in that one, and because they won the Ecclesia vote, they were the ones who were included in this actual on-chain vote. So I voted yes for this one. Next up, I've talked a million times about why I support the 70 million ADA for the Cardano critical integrations budget. Previously, I told you about voting on the info action. The way treasury withdrawals currently work, you have an info action, then you have the actual treasury withdrawal. This is the actual treasury withdrawal. I voted yes on this one as well. Then we have the net change limit extension. This is an extension in terms of how long the current NCL is valid for, not an extension in the amount of the NCL. So the NCL amount is staying the same. It's just that it ended on, like, what was it, January 4th or something. It's been extended to February 8th or something like that. It's like roughly a month and 4 days or something like that. This is necessary in order for a net change limit to be valid during the 70 million Cardano critical integrations budget governance action. If no net change limit was in effect, then the money wouldn't be able to come out of the treasury. So this is largely just kind of an administrative adjustment that had to be made. But I want to let everybody know about those three votes. I think these votes, this was also actually administrative in the sense that we could not have done this without also having the full constitutional committee. So we needed to fill the seat on the constitutional committee. We also needed to extend the NCL in order to do this. You all know already why I support this. If not, go back and watch the previous videos where I talked quite extensively about that. So let's move on now to some of the horror stories. Let's move on now to some of the horror stories from the last couple of days. So yeah, I keep thinking about this, Danil. I wonder if maybe when you mined it, maybe when you mined in the scavenger mine, maybe I'm hoping it's just a different account in the same wallet, and that's what's going on. Because if it's saying 0 and you're punching in the correct address, that's a big mystery. I hope that's not what it is, because I don't know how to solve that one if that's the case. Do we have a bar indicating the night released? So we've got the amount that CMC is telling us is in circulation, which is the 16.6. But I think you're asking about, like, has somebody made a little widget showing the amount that gets released every day? That's probably a good idea. That's like a good little project for somebody to probably vibe code. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know of anybody who's done that yet, but that would be, if somebody would do that, that'd be kind of nice to reference every day. And then we wouldn't have to think about these fictional averages. We could just have the actual number that was released every day. That'd be cool. Have you ever played Factorio? I feel like you'd really like that game. Joe, I don't even know if I've heard of that game. You'll have to tell me about it. I don't think I've ever heard of Factorio. Okay, Vanessa says, hello, does anyone know if I can send my purchased night tokens to your Roy wallet? Yeah, I mean, they're just Cardano native tokens, so you should be able to, anywhere you can deal with Cardano native tokens. So any wallet that can handle Cardano native tokens should be able to handle Night, because it's just a Cardano native token. Puppers got loose and got in a fight today. He's sleeping now, sore, but not injured. Okay. Puppers Sore but not injured. Puppers and I have the same problem. Puppers and I think, have the same problem right now. So I feel for Puppers. I think we both have the same problem and kind of from the same cause. So um okay. Okay. So let's look at this horror story. This is kind of a PSA thing. Everybody should be aware of this. I don't want to go out of my way and scare people about stuff like this, but it's scary. So people should be aware. Cardano Tools, which is a hilarious X name, says some wild price action is happening on Cardano dexes with swap prices all over the place. Someone bought 0.39 night at a price of 4,761 ADA per coin. Exercise caution. So caveat, this was at 3:49-ish a.m. This was in the morning. I can't remember what my VPN is set to. So some time zone, some Western time zone, I think. This was early in the morning. So that's relevant for something we're going to look at in just a second. Actually, I'll show you right now just so no one gets too confused. So somebody was complaining, strange, why is a CNT not tradable on Cardano of all places? Shouldn't this be one of the first places? Charles said, all the dexes will be active within 24 hours. Patience, kids. So this early trading was obviously super low liquidity trading. So you have to remember a lot of these dexes, I mean, they're kind of permissionless. The second the night tokens got into the wild, people were going to take those and create liquidity pools and with really thin liquidity and make it really easy for people to do this. And this person was not the only one, not the only instance reported of this. Let's see, can we see the handle? I don't think we can see I don't think we know the handle of this one. We do know the handle of this one. Similar incident. Someone just wiped a 90,000 ADA trade on a low liquidity night pool. Please double check your price impact, available LPs, trade value, and slippage before swapping. So this is really bad. If you basically erased 90,000 ADA from your portfolio, this is very similar to what we think an early voucher holder did in a DEX. This is the same problem. Like, people don't understand how slippage works in DEXs. They don't understand when they're trading in a low liquidity pool. And that stuff was all happening this morning because, as Charles pointed out, it sounded like the DEXs weren't really going to be in a liquidity comfortable position ready to trade night until sometime later. So this was also early this morning, until sometime later, but the trading was happening and people were suffering problems like this. So I think for most people, limit orders in a place like Kraken are probably pretty safe. Are your fees going to be higher? Possibly, sure. But do you avoid erasing 90,000 ADA from your bag? Probably a little bit easier to do it over in the DEX world than it is on Kraken with limit orders. So these are the nightmares that are going on. I've said this before. When the thing happened with the person who we've been led to believe was an early voucher holder, probably from Japan, we need to make trading, decentralized trading, much more user friendly. If we keep burning people like this, I mean, you can argue that it's their own fault all you want, right? You can argue, oh, trading is complicated. You have to be a sophisticated trader to use DEXs. You can say that all you want, but these people who suffer these kinds of losses because the pitfalls are so numerous and deep, they're going to go around for the rest of their lives telling people that crypto sucks. Right? They're like, we're creating negative billboards for our movement that will last a lifetime. Like, these people, if you lose 90,000 ADA, that other person lost, millions of dollars of ADA. You're going to go around talking shit about crypto for the rest of your life. Like, that is the exact opposite of the kind of advertising we want to do for crypto. So we've got to figure out some way to do better. Like, crypto needs to be permissionless. Decentralized platforms need to be permissionless. So you have to, it's a big boy world. You have to let people make mistakes, but there's got to be some way. We've got to come up with some way to direct people away from this. We can't have this become the norm. We cannot eat the new people. We cannot eat the new people. It's not a good practice. So things will get better once there's sort of proper liquidity on the big dexes. That'll, insulate, unsophisticated users of the dexes from these kind of problems. But we got to come up with some better solution than this. This is not really tenable. If we keep like financially destroying people, they're not gonna look back with happiness on their time in crypto. Puppers has got a Don Julio and a heat pad rocking now. Good for him. Both those sound good. I've experienced the redeem portal showing 0 when trying to redeem some of my NuFi account addresses when entering manually. When linking via the portal shows the correct amount. Okay, there you go. I don't know what this problem you guys are encountering is exactly, but there's somebody reporting something that sounds similar to nil. Blue Mammal says Kraken has been working for me. So yeah, I think that's probably a good way to go. So, okay, S Walker says, hey, can you explain how we have exchanges reporting a night price today? How are their night in circulation right now? Oh, I was waiting for this question to come up. And I actually we need to navigate to a night page. Let's go to, God, do I have a tab with it open already? I guess I do not. Okay, let's go to Midnight Network. Okay. Night. Oh God, this is gonna be hard. I think I need to, what was it? Midnight.gd. Was it midnight.gd? Is that the right address for the glacier drop? Okay, so there's a page I've actually shown on the channel before that showed the various categories of, oh, look at that. Yeah, they used Vercel. For the Midnight page. If you've been doing some vibe coding lately and deploying things, you might know what Vercel is. Okay, we are here. Let's see if I can find the correct page without forcing you guys to watch me surf around, which I know is the most torturous, horrible thing ever. So where is the page? Glacier drop. Let's see if I can find the correct. Okay, Glacier drop wallets and address type compatibility, September 18th. That is not it. Let's see. Redeem might have some of the numbers. God, I can't remember how to find that blog entry. But basically, the answer to your question, I'll try to see if I can find this. If I can find this a little bit later. But the answer to your question, in the blog update I showed, where they showed the changes in some of the allocations because they changed the amount of allocation during the scavenger mine from like 635 million to $1 billion. They also showed, and in the tokenomics rundowns, they also show the amount that is going to places other than the scavenger mine allocations, the glacier drop allocations. So you've got I think they call it the TGE allocation, like the token generation event allocation. Then you've got a Midnight Foundation allocation. There's some insider allocations going on there. And then you've got, deals have to be struck with these exchanges, right? These exchanges, in order for them to have trading, they needed to have, liquidity on the exchanges. So I don't know how any of the insider allocations are working. I don't know how any of that's working, but I do know the exchanges needed to have liquidity in order for markets to be made. So it's all that kind of stuff. It's not that anybody got their allocations from the glacier drop early. It's not that some people, somehow got their allocations on day -1. It's that there were other allocations besides the scavenger mine and the glacier drop. I wish you could find that exact list. It's somewhere on this page, but I won't torture you guys by trying to find it right now. Okay. Okay, we got that. We got that. Okay, so this was kind of interesting. So we've been talking about how Charles and John O'Connor would be making speeches at Abu Dhabi Finance Week. So apparently what happened was Charles was in his jet on the way to Abu Dhabi Finance Week. Sounds like he went to Maine to go get some extra fuel to make the transatlantic voyage, the transatlantic flight in his plane, and his landing gear would not come up, which of course creates extra drag as you're flying through the air across the Atlantic. So they had to make an emergency landing in Boston. And the next thing we knew, our dude Charles was flying commercial back home to Colorado, Wyoming area, I'm assuming. This is kind of funny. I don't think we've seen a picture of Charles flying commercial anywhere. The look on his face kind of reminds me of a guy who has not flown commercial in a long time and is now being forced to fly a commercial. He does not look overly stoked about the fact he can. I mean, he probably doesn't really care that much about flying commercial. He's probably just pissed that he probably had a talking points ready for the Abu Dhabi Finance Week speech, and instead he's going back to Colorado. So no Abu Dhabi Finance Week. I think later on, IO said that Charles would be doing some kind of a virtual thing since he was missing the in-person appearance. Hopefully, we still get a chance to see John O'Connor's presentation because I believe that is going to be on RealFi because that is the project that John O'Connor is in charge of. So I'm still excited to see the John O'Connor RealFi speech. Blue Mammal says, yeah, just wait for more liquidity. Otis Frichov says, well, with Kraken, I can use fiat instead of my ADA bags. That's actually attractive. That's one of the most attractive things about stable coins. And when it has a legit fiat on ramp like Kraken does, just being able to straight use fiat is great if you're not trying to spend your ADA. So it makes for a much simpler discussion with your accountant. When your accountant says, did you spend any of your ADA this year? And you have to be like, oh, well, I did buy this thing, and he's like, oh, well, what's your accounting method for the bag that came out of? Is it first in, first out? You can avoid all that by using fiat for sure. Puckyhawk says, I don't pay fees on Kraken unless I get drunk. Then all bets are off. Fair enough. I have 1,200 night left to claim, but I only did the mining, so I don't know when I'll be able to claim. Okay. Wait, is that MinSwap Night token? I just bought a scam. Check the policy ID. It should have one boob. FECA1. It should include the text FECA1 and also boob. There should be a boob in there. We talked about it the other night. One boob, not 3. So not the total recall chick, just one boob. B117 feels good about your chances. Okay, brown bearded hermit says, beyond UI warnings and indexes, I generally don't know what can be done if the user ignores the warnings. What else is there? I 100% agree. I think we've got to direct them places other than AMM dexes, right? Like even order book dexes are better. People forget that our first dex in Cardano was not an AMM. It was an order book dex. So it was MuesliSwap. MuesliSwap started out as an order book dex, which you can do in EUTXO, right? It's kind of interesting. Like we've sort of adopted AMM dexes because that's the industry standard. Because in the account balance world, AMM dexes make more sense, right? But in the EUTXO world, it's pretty convenient to do order book dexes, and we just haven't adopted them because the industry standard is AMM dexes. And there's some things that people like about that. People like to LP into those. People like all the yield farming that goes on, everything that goes on with liquidity pools, people like being a part of that, and it's the standard in crypto. But I think we need to direct people away from AMM dexes if they're new to the ecosystem. Like that situation where, probably, the narrative that most people sort of the consensus view was that person that lost the millions of dollars in slippage was probably an elderly original voucher holder in Asia using a DEX for the first time. Like those types of users, we need to direct them away from AMM DEXs, I'm afraid. I know the people running AMM DEXs aren't going to like to hear that, but I agree with you. It's not that the AMM DEX platforms are doing anything wrong. It's just that they're the wrong tool. If this is the best we can do and people are still losing millions of dollars, and in that case, what was it, 90,000 ADA, like we need to, slippage is too hard for people to understand. And liquidity, people don't even know what it means. When you say liquidity, people don't even know what you're talking about. So we can't expect first-time users to go to an AMM DEX and not assume the experience is going to be like Coinbase, because I'm pretty sure what happens is they go there and they think the experience is going to be like Coinbase, where they see a price and they buy for that amount, and there's going to be like a spread and a fee, but there's not going to be changing of the price. You could argue that the spread and the fee do kind of change the price, but not in the same way slippage does in an AMM DEX, right? I mean, you're talking about a wildly different price than they banked on. It's like the expectation does not match the outcome, right? When they go on Coinbase, they are told there's going to be a spread and a fee. And even if they miss that, they just pay the spread and the fee, but they're pretty minimal. In an AMM DEX, the slippage can result in a wildly different price. And I think they're just not the appropriate tool for unsophisticated people trying to swap assets. Cardano Universe, I was impressed, almost reached 10 cents. Yeah, that was impressive. I agree. Policy ID had Boob for real night. Yeah. Yeah, Boob was included in the policy ID for real night. So was FECA1. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and look at the video from, when was it? Yesterday. I think it was yesterday. The video, we actually showed that policy ID. Probably a liquidity agreement with exchanges that makes sense. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Charles had food poisoning also. Oh yeah, this is funny. He went to what's the big chain churrascaria? Fogo de Chao. I think it was Fogo. He went to a Fogo de Chao, and he said he ate the salad. I mean, this is kind of your own fault. I love Charles, but it's your own fault, player. If you go to a churrascaria and you eat the salad, like you should be eating the meat. You should be eating the meat there. There's no reason to be eating the salad. When you got guys running around with gigantic skewers full of all kinds of different meat, like you should eat that meat. You should not eat the salad. You're kind of begging. The carnivore gods are going to strike down your stomach if you go for the salad, right? In the pantheon of gods, I believe at least one of them is a carnivore, and he probably just waits for you to go into Fogo de Chao and eat the salad. That's when he will strike. He will strike down your stomach for that. No. The fake knight that was sold on Binance this morning had a policy ID that started with 69 and had boob in the middle. Did it? Okay, so this has happened in the history of crypto. This has happened. You can kind of force small bits of, I'll put it this way. In the history of crypto, it's happened that people have been able to force small bits of like vanity public addresses. So the same, I'm sure, is true of policy IDs. You can, force small bits of it to be true. So did it also contain FECA1? So I would be much more surprised if it also had FECA1 in it. If they got the 69, I can't remember if the correct one started with 69, but it definitely had boob. If it had boob and FECA1, that would be more impressive. And it kind of defeats our little memory device there, but I'm guessing it just had the boob part and not the FECA1 part. but you can tell me if that's wrong. Pupper said, I hope he didn't fucking fly Spirit Airlines. Cramped pause in a tuna can. True. Very true. I can't tell what he's flying there. Some guardrails for AMM dexes involving oracles could prevent trading that falls for beyond normal trading ranges. It seems irresponsible to operate a dex without such a safety feature. I mean, in the case of that, I agree. But in the case of that, like people posted screenshots of what they thought that early, suspected early voucher holder probably saw. And there were some pretty prominent warnings, at least the mock-ups people were showing. Maybe they weren't, I mean, they were supposed to be screenshots of what the person would have seen, but who knows, maybe they could have faked them. But I assume I have no reason to believe those were, fraudulent. I believe those screenshots were screenshots of what the person would have seen. But the problem in that case was that the person was suspected to be an early voucher holder in Japan. So maybe they couldn't read the warnings. So, which is kind of a problem. But I mean, whatever it is, we know empirically it's not working, right? Empirically, we know that newcomers to crypto get eaten alive by AMM dexes, right? I mean, that's something that I don't think anybody can deny at this point, because no logical person is going to make those trades. Like, people are losing huge amounts of money. It's failing for them somehow. My own strategy is to hold on to bull run scenario and beyond, because they value that a privacy token has this wicked world hasn't. Okay, let me read that again. My own strategy is to hold into bull run scenario and beyond, because the value that a privacy token has in this wicked world we live in is greater now, and everyone knows its true value. Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay. Why didn't he charter to Abu Dhabi? Sure, he can afford that, or even fly commercial to the meeting. It's important, darn it. Yeah, I mean, I think he had to be there, though. I think the story was that he had to be there Wednesday, Abu Dhabi time. So that would be like, he had to be there Tuesday. I don't know if it was in the morning, but he would have had to have been there Tuesday his time. And he said there just wasn't time to get over there. Maybe that just means he didn't want to fly transatlantic commercial or something, or maybe he couldn't find a charter. Maybe he didn't think he could find a charter in time. I don't know, but obviously he's not going. Grok says it's a good buy with lots of blood in the street from thawing cells. I'm buying right now. Okay. The price is over a nickel now. Okay. Now we're talking. Let's go. Cardano versus spot more. James Syracuse says, impermanent loss is my nuts. Okay. I didn't expect to read that sentence tonight, but okay. Fair enough. Yeah, McDonald's is it's biologically true, though. It's biologically true. I love it. It is biologically true. Yeah, McDonald's is safer when traveling. Brown bearded hermit says, I hear what you're saying, but can we expect to protect someone who doesn't know how to use an AMM DEX on the first day of a brand new token on the market, setting aside the fact that this token has its own liquidity details? Yeah, no, I don't think the AMM DEXs can protect them. I'm saying we need to direct them somewhere other than AMM DEXs. You know what I mean? It's sort of like little kids walk into the kitchen and they're like, hey, I want to eat this apple. Like, you don't hand them your 10-inch Japanese chef's knife and say, go for it. You know what I mean? It's like you might chop it up for them. You might give them, a slice of an apple and a butter knife, but you don't give them the 10-inch chef's knife from Japan with the, super that you've like sharpened on your Japanese whetstones the night before. You give them something safer. I think it's the same thing, right? Like, you want to have that chef's knives in the kitchen. You just don't give it to the 7-year-old, right? And they might be able to access it. They might be able to climb up on the countertop when you're out looking and grab it. You can't really stop that from happening, but you can direct them elsewhere. You can direct them to the butter knife instead. So that's all I'm saying. I mean, it needs to be permissionless. Like, their ability to go in there and fuck themselves needs to exist for us to maintain our permissionlessness. But at the same time, we should direct them elsewhere because it obviously doesn't fucking work. Like we've seen 3 instances of people fucking themselves recently just in our ecosystem. It happens everywhere, but it's not a Cardano thing. This happens everywhere. AMM dexes are a thing. But I think like I wouldn't turn my mother, who's never used any crypto platform ever, I wouldn't turn her loose with any amount of money she cares about in an AMM dex. I just wouldn't do it, right? But you got to think like we want to bring those people into the ecosystem. We can't turn them loose with AMM dexes. It's the way they currently work. It's like we know empirically they get fucked, right? Maybe it's a small number. Maybe, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would justify by saying, oh, but this is only like 1% of people or whatever. That's an acceptable collateral damage level. I would argue you don't want to create lifelong negative billboards against crypto. Mission Zambia says to eat the meat, don't beat the meat. I mean, Charles will get kicked off that flight if he does the ladder. So I don't think he'll do the ladder. I don't think we're in danger of that one. Cardano Universe, it's way too early to worry about price. Techno guy. Okay. Okay. Saza says he ate some salad and gave him a bad case of food poisoning. That's true. That is true. I'm sure that added to his desire not to scramble and fly across the Atlantic. I'm sure having food poisoning just added to his desire to go home. I've had bad food poisoning, both in North America and on other continents. I've had really bad food poisoning. I won't tell you guys. There's one very difficult. There was a difficult day in an airport. I won't describe it. Everything went okay. Everything went okay. It wasn't the worst. It was not the bad eventuality I was fearing, but there was a lot of difficult time to avoid that. Okay, have to tip the hat to Charles for such an incredible launch of a new blockchain. Yeah, dude, hitting $1 billion in, I mean, this is basically the worst possible scenario. You're in December of 2025. Worst possible scenario. It was supposed to be the peak of a bull run. It turns out to be the worst Q4 of a cycle ever, the most disappointing Q4 ever. That's when you launch your blockchain. It's not his fault. He couldn't turn back, you know. He picked the perfect time, and you know, the destiny did not favor that pick. So it's pretty remarkable they pulled off a $1 billion market cap on day one, given what's going on in the world. So Puckyhawk says the more important question is, how do you protect a person willing to eat salad? That's my question. How can we expect Charles to even protect himself if he's willing to eat a salad? That's my real question. Okay. Check this out. The palm economy guys are busy in Nigeria with the cocoa farmers. Check this out. They're doing real stuff. I've talked about this before. This is the real, you know, creating an alternative world economy stuff that I think we all got into this for. This is pretty incredible to see this going down. I don't know anything about palm economy. I especially don't know anything about the coin. It's just like World Mobile. I support what I'm seeing. Don't know a damn thing about the coin. Don't want to know anything about the coin. But I like what I'm seeing on the ground here. This is fantastic. I'm going to try to learn more about palm economy, not the token. I'm never going to talk to you guys about the tokens related to these projects, but what they're doing, man, this seems like exactly what we all got into crypto for. Not all of us, but a lot of us. Okay, next up, you know what goes down tomorrow? FOMC presser. The owl is going to jump up there at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. 2:30 p.m. Eastern, the owl is going to jump up there. And what are we going to see? We already know what we're going to see because both Polymarket and CME FedWatch are telling us if they'll load. I don't know if Polymarket's going to load here. Come on, Polymarket. Please load. Okay, there you go. Polymarket is giving you 96% chance of a 25 basis point decrease. So 96% chance of a 26 basis point cut CME Fed Watch is going to be a little bit more conservative than that. They're going to give you something less than that. 87.4% CME Fed Watch. But this is pretty much as sure a thing predictions for how a Fed FOMC presser is going to go. So that'll go down tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. I thought this was interesting. Sterling Crispin here, don't know who this is, but he had an interesting post. He said, incredible innovation. Stripe is charging 1.5% to transfer USDC. I recently sent 200 of USDC on Base, and my transaction fee was, man, that is a couple decimal points past beyond a penny, under a penny. Tiny transaction fee. The transaction fee would be the same for $1 or 100 million USDC. Charging 1.5% simply to send USDC is ludicrously unreasonable. I included this because I think this is like the reason that crypto is bound to win against TradFi. The TradFi version of all these things, whenever they try to do this bastardized version of crypto where they're like pushing USDC on, Stripe rails and trying to charge 1.5%, we're going to destroy them on that. We're going to beat them on that because we can just do it so much cheaper. This also highly amusing. Cointelegraph, Vitalik Buterin, Vitamin Butters proposes on-chain gas futures market for Ethereum to help users hedge against network fee volatility as adoption increases. Of course, you could have not gone for global state. You could have gone for a local state and predictable fees. Charles says predictable prices for gas. I've heard about this concept somewhere before. I thought that was interesting. And finally, credit to Stake with Pride for pointing this out. But originally, I thought one of the most entertaining versions of this was this post right here. You can see this says Solana loses 68% of its validators in 3 years. Is the network in trouble or evolving? And if you click this article or the many other articles on this issue, you'll see they had like damn near 3,000 validators, and now they're down to like 800. So this has to do with pruning on their network. They decided for every new validator they would accept, they would kill off 2. This is just a difference in attitude. This is a difference in approach to the world. I think this person summed it up. Solana used to be centralized, still centralized, but used to be as well. A lot of other people saying the same thing. This person is trying to rationalize that blockchain never had anything to do with decentralization, maybe immutability. I would disagree. And this poster, Solana used to be centralized, and now it's even more centralized. That's kind of like the cells version. This person says more validators can slow Solana down. It's evolving backwards, just like my wallet. So this is probably a surprise to no one, to like absolutely no one in Cardano, because our sort of perspective on Solana has sort of been like, yeah, we know. You've got to make compromises on the blockchain trilemma. If you want more scaling, you have to compromise something, either security or decentralization or both, because it's a compromise between these 2 things. Now we can add privacy as sort of a fourth leg of the trilemma. But we kind of knew they were compromising on decentralization no matter what they told us. It's like, just try to Google Solana Nakamoto coefficient. Try to Google Solana Nakamoto coefficient, and you will find many different answers to that question, some of which have been crafted, I would argue, by proponents of Solana, and some that are a little more accurate, but it's very hard to nail it down. You'll even find people still saying, even though they pruned, like, over, what was it, 68% of their validators, you'll still find people saying Solana validation is the most decentralized in all of crypto. You'll still find people saying that. They just don't care about accuracy. Okay. Otis Fricio says, fiat mines in the AM. I got to call it early. See y'all next time. Okay, see you next time. Thank you for joining. I would send a noob to Robinhood. They have the most friendly noob interface. Yeah, I mean, if you don't lose millions of dollars, then they fucking beat AMM DEX is in Cardano apparently. So, my centralized exchange of choice is KuCoin, and apparently Knight is trading on it. Fill your bags, ADA fans, before Knight goes mainstream. Yeah, this is true. So Brown Bearded Hermit says, point taken, AMMs were the ones ready for today. I think order book DEXs will be ready with Knight either now or tomorrow. I believe Charles said today. This matter could have been solved by patience. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be. I agree with you. You're right about all that. There's always going to be. There's always going to be some level of contributory negligence by the user, right? It's like, if you're like a very seasoned veteran trader on AMM DEXs, obviously you're not going to make the same mistakes as noobs. So yeah, I think that's that's always going to be true for sure. Okay. Lone Eagle says his jet had a problem and could not put the wheels up, so he had to go southwest. Oh wow, that's a big change. Say TNX. Say thanks to Trump for the best Q4 ever in a crypto bull cycle. Techno guy. Yeah, I mean, they're wild boys in this administration. The whole tariff thing, these are some wild boys. They're doing some wild stuff economically, and what this year would have looked like if not for the wild boy activities. I don't know. I don't know what it would have. I think about this often, obviously, because obviously I was hoping for a very different Q4 than we got. So what would it have looked like if we hadn't had all this wild boy stuff going on? That part, I don't know, but I wonder about it often. Yep, tomorrow we're gonna get cut. Unless, God, if Jerome, if the owl jumps up there and surprises the hell out of us and doesn't give us a cut, that'd be wild. I've talked about it a lot recently, but obviously, people are just, even Hassett, who's probably going to be the next Fed chair, describes it as herding cats. We talked recently about how in the Greenspan years, it wasn't like that. People felt like Greenspan would push a button and an anvil would fall on their head if they talked too much in the meetings. Now, apparently, it's much more of an actual, the FOMC isn't much more of an actual committee, and it's a little more democratic. And Powell often describes his role as guiding the committee to consensus rather than, sort of being this domineering character. And he's got competing factions within the Fed, within the FOMC. So there's competing factions. We've talked about this in the past, but there are a bunch of people in the room. Only so many of them actually get to vote. But it sounds like the chair is trying to guide everybody toward consensus. Because you've got, like the head of the New York Fed is always on the FOMC. And then there's this rotating cast of the other heads of the Federal Reserve banks who are on the FOMC. But there's more people than that in the room. So the Fed chair has got a bunch of people in that room, some of whom actually get to vote and some of whom are just there kind of like informally exerting their presence. And they're all, they've all got views, as we know from the dot plot. We see in the dot plot how they differ, right? In the dot plot, you can see where everybody thinks the federal funds rate is going to be at different points in the future. And they have wildly differing opinions, so different that a dot plot is the best way to show the range of, ideas about what the future is going to look like. And they're wildly different. So the Fed chair's got to contend with that, and he's got to guide them towards some kind of a consensus. And then they have to put out, what they're going to do. Obviously, everybody's betting tomorrow is a 25 basis point cut. If that's not the case, all hell's going to break loose. So I think they would have signaled, done some kind of there would have been some kind of informal signaling. They do not like to surprise the shit out of the markets. That's not what they're in for, especially because it looks like they're on this course where they want to have this cut. And then, they'll probably throw a lot of shade on, the uncertainty going forward, because they don't have any economic data right now. So they don't know, are things really bad right now? Are they kind of okay? Both in terms of, employment and inflation, both sides of the dual mandate. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm with you. Sorry, that was way too much information to respond to. Yes, go Jerome. But I'm with you. Go Owl. Give us that cut tomorrow. Shirt. Let's fucking go. Right sleeve. Real shit. Left sleeve. That's pretty much the attitude around here, isn't it? I think that is. BTC cent cost $10 of BTC and cost 1 BTC. How is that satiable? Okay. Let's see. I don't think I'm tracking exactly what you're trying to say there. Evolving backwards, just like my wallet. That made me bust a gut. Yeah, me too. I think we can all relate to that. So looking at CMC, the night coin pricing is all very similar. I wonder which oracle they are using to work cross chain and on DEX and sexes. Yeah, I noticed. Obviously Binance owns CMC. Binance runs CMC and their competitor Kraken. I noticed that Kraken was not in the list of exchanges that they list there for good reason. I mean, you don't want to advertise your competitor, but in the early moments of trading, the exchanges that CMC was listing on the night page had wildly different prices than the prices that were printing at Kraken. So there was that. I suppose that's the downside for sending out your plane for other people to use. Extra wear and tear. Too bad. Yeah, that's true. That's true. When you kind of like put your plane in one of those charter pools, it's getting a lot more. There's a lot more degradation because it's flying the miles. I understand there's also like there's like a different set of concerns when you don't do that. When your plane just sits in some hangar and you use it like once a month, there's like a different set of concerns because it's actually not flying. So I don't know what's better. Maybe we can get Charles to comment on this in an AMA because I'd be curious to know like the sort of like factors in his calculus about renting out the plane, right? Putting the plane in the charter pool. I've also been surprised how at first, when he first did that, I was also surprised about how transparent he was about who was using his plane. When he started naming celebrities, I was kind of surprised. I thought he'd keep that a little closer to the vest, but I mean, it doesn't really reveal that much. It's like when you hear that like The Rock is flying around in a private plane or Metallica is flying around in a private plane, you're not really learning that much because you already pretty much assume those guys are not like flying Southwest, right? You already know they're flying in private planes. So the fact that they're flying in a specific private plane as part of a charter pool, like, not much information disclosed there. Coinbase is still holding out. I'm going to tell everyone to sign up with Kraken. Sorry, Coinbase, you're just not fair-minded. Yeah, they're not our friends. They're not being good friends with us, are they? Who's going to get lucky and was decentralized centralized and get their midnight tomorrow? Yeah, who's got a day one? Wasn't somebody claiming a day one in the comments at some point? Somebody was claiming they got day one. Kraken has always been the best one. They have their own little army to protect it all. Brian says, I left Coinbase many moons ago and went to Kraken and never looked back. Yeah, I mean, the big problem with Kraken back in the day, I always liked Kraken's attitude a little better just because I think Jesse Powell is like a wild man and I kind of like that. The problem with Kraken back in the day is they didn't have the same kind of fiat on-ramp as Coinbase had back in the day. So back in the day, Kraken had like a good European fiat on-ramp, but they had like wires for fiat on-ramp for North America, which kind of sucked. So Coinbase, I never really understood why that was the case, why Coinbase's bank deposit was so much more convenient than Kraken's. I never understood why that was the case back in the day, but I assume it was just like different relationships. Like Kraken had a good banking relationship in Europe, whereas Coinbase did in the US. That was kind of they marked other territories. Now I know it's different now though. I hate so very much that we cannot hold the Fed to account. Who knows what the detractors and the committees are thinking? They may be something as simple as hacks with TDS. Yeah, Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, God, I mean, the horrible thing is I feel like Jerome Powell is I feel like he is a very reasonable guy and he's a very smart guy and he's a good communicator. I hate that him and Trump hate each other so much because I know when you hate somebody that bad, even though he appointed you, when you hate somebody that bad, rightly so, because he's talked so much shit about you, it'd be really hard to be objective. It'd be really hard not to subconsciously, be biased against whatever's good for that person. It'd be really hard to say. You'd have to be so disciplined to safeguard against doing stuff to fuck with that person, even subconsciously. So it's tough. I think Jerome Powell in his rhetoric is very, very disciplined, but it's like we know it's different when the cameras aren't on. As evidenced by that time, there were some protesters or something outside a Fed meeting, and Powell had that hot mic moment where he's like, "Just shut the fucking door." It was such different language than we hear with him on the mic, of course, but I'm with you. It'd be interesting to see how they talk about things in those meetings. Island Native, what's up? Thank you for joining. Um, it costs 1 BTC to send 100K to send. Yeah, I mean, so in crypto, we're still kind of screwing up in crypto. In parts of crypto, we're still screwing up and making it way too expensive to send stuff for sure. In some cases, 25 basis points seems locked in. Agreed. It's very common to list your private plane on a Turo-like service. Planes are expensive to just have sitting around. Many of the celebs most likely don't even know whose plane they rented. 100%. I mean, for sure. Like, I've used Turo. I don't know who owns the cars that I've rented on Turo. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty normal. And I agree the celebrities probably don't know whose plane they're using. It's like, how's that Fort Knox tour coming along? Yeah, that's kind of interesting. One of the weird things about having these wild boys in the White House right now is some of that stuff you would like sit around with your roommates and talk about in college. Like they're actually kind of doing some of that stuff like this. I feel like they sit around and they have those same kinds of conversations. Ada out of the top 10 now. I haven't checked. Is that the case on CMC? It happens. I mean, sometimes we dropped like 11 or 12, but when you look historically, like, man, we are one of the few ecosystems who stayed in the top 10 this long. A lot have come and gone. It's kind of shocking. It's way more. If you haven't gone back and like watched one of those videos where they show the top 10, you don't realize how much jockeying in and out there is and how many ecosystems were in the top 10, like back in 2017, who nobody even talks about anymore. It's kind of astounding that we're still there. I hate seeing the same old politicians who seem to be protected from their crimes, especially the insider trading thing. You could argue that it's not even insider trading, but it's definitely unethical. What's been going on is definitely unethical. Okay, good. Still at 10 on CMC. Thank God. It is up 13%. I was gonna say, yeah, I felt like all the coverage today was that the night volume, the volume from night, which is a Cardano native token, was only going to be good for Cardano's price and was having positive effects already. Charles has said that his pivot plan has been one of his most profitable businesses he has gone into. His pivot plane, or are you saying his private plane, like renting out the private plane, has been one of the most profitable businesses he has gotten into? I think I might remember him saying that, actually. I think you're right. I have to say my heart sunk the day the Wild Boys dropped his wife's coin. I was like, this just made us look like a joke. That's what killed 2025 for alts. Yeah, that sucked. I mean, that, and I wish we could blame it on a singular event like that. I think if you look at the lack of liquidity, though, just the lack of liquidity could explain why 2025 sucks so bad. But I agree, that was terrible optics. Really bad optics. We up by 5 billion over number 11. Good. Let's keep it that way. Good. His private plane. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking about his private plane. All right. Well, guys, I think this has been a pretty fantastic day one of night trading. We are not at, as this thumbnail says, we are not at the 10 billions of nights, but we made it to 1 billion nights. And I was a little bit afraid we wouldn't even make it to 1 billion nights. So the fact that we've made it to 1 billion is kind of astounding in this kind of environment. It really makes me believe that if we'd had some liquidity in 2025, some decent liquidity, nobody can expect that we would have what we had in 2021, that crazy wall of liquidity from COVID. Nobody could have expected that in 2025, but we could have had a little bit of liquidity. We could have had quantitative tightening not end 8 days ago. We could have had it end 8 months ago. That would have been super helpful, super fucking helpful. We've been in a quantitative tightening environment this entire year. We're 8 days out of quantitative tightening. We don't even have quantitative easing. We just have, neutrality. We're 8 days into that, and Knight still made it to over 1 billion market cap. That's pretty fantastic. It really makes me believe we could have hit 10 billion if we'd been in any kind of a normal Q4, like we were expecting. But I think this is great progress. This just shows once we have a little bit of liquidity, once we're in a better macro environment, hopefully this is a great sign that Knight will do great. And I think where Knight does great, Cardano will also do great. So I hope everybody had a good day one of Knight. Blue Mammal says, let's go. Danil says, good night. Cry Speed Freak says, like the vid on the way out. Thanks. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. I'm having an Austin Powers flashback, $1 billion, pretty much. I may get 50 to 60K midnight for free. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, this is great. What more can you ask for? You get a bunch of coins for free, and that coin goes to $1 billion market cap in a really bad macro environment. Thanks for joining at Cardano. I appreciate it. So I think this is about as good as we could have wished for. Things could have been far, far worse given how bad things are on the macro front right now. Just like the lack of liquidity. Given the lack of liquidity, things could have been a lot worse. We could have easily been under a cent all day today, and everybody been like, yeah, makes sense. That didn't happen. We're doing much better than that. We'll see how it goes in the coming days. But I hope everybody had a great day one. I hope you're looking forward to a great rest of the week, and I will talk to you soon.